What's up? It is your resin 3D printing god, Akuma Mods, back again with a filament printer review. Yes, that's right. We do filament printer reviews here on the channel, and this is no exception. This is the Flsun V400. So for some of you guys that do or do not know about FDM printers, and apologies for my lighting, it kind of blends in here, but essentially this is a ginormous Delta style printer. Now if you guys do or do not know what a Delta printer is, they are known for being very compact and very tall. So you can print very tall items, and they have great accuracy due to the Delta style setup that the printer is made from. And this thing is no exception. It is a fantastic printer. Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys that we did have a little bit of a rocky start with it. There were some issues that just plagued the printer right out of the box. And to be in all honesty, they just kind of fixed themselves. I don't know if it was just it needed some wear in time or what exactly happened. But yeah, it's been printing okay ever since about, I want to say 2 weeks ago. And it's been doing pretty good. And I had left this print on here. Usually I try and show this off while it's printing, doing the review. But I figured this is good enough. It literally just finished this print last night. And we'll take it off the build plate and show you. And I'll show you some of the other prints that we have here that I've done with this printer. There are several others, but unfortunately I can't really show you those because they're either gone, sold, or I just can't show you. I'm sorry. So anyway, let's get into the specifications of this machine. So this is an insanely large Delta printer. It's about 3.5 feet tall, probably almost close to 4 with the spool holder, which is literally right out of my camera angle's range. And right now we just got a small 250 gram spool loaded on there, and it looks hysterical. So this printer boasts some amazing speeds, and I will tell you, it does not disappoint in that. So much so that it might be a little too fast at some points. Now, there's a reason why this specific print has a raft on it. And that's because when I loaded it up into Lychee Slicer, because that was the only one that seemed to have a good profile right out of the box, without me having to tinkering too much. I usually use Simplified 3D, but for some reason the homing part just wasn't working on that. So I probably just user error and me not understanding where the homing process is on the Delta. But essentially it would come out to the edge of here and it would error out every time. So either way, I don't know exactly what happened, but we got it working with Kira and with Lychee Slicer. Both worked very well, but it seemed like Lychee Slicer tend to have a little bit better profile for it. So, but anyway, back to the whole raft type part. Now, you guys know that I don't usually use rafts. Brims is about as close as I get, but I usually use a skirt on literally every single FDM printer that I've had here. But the reason why we had to use a raft on this is because it is so insanely fast after the first layer that it was literally just knocking the supports right off of the build plate. And while that may seem like a leveling issue, it actually isn't. We've had it leveled, we've gotten all the mesh corrected on it, and it was just the fact that it would move so quickly that it wasn't sticking down enough for the build plate. So if you guys are going to get one of these printers and utilize it, I do highly suggest slowing down the first few layers and then speeding it up, so that way you have something to at least stick down on the build plate. But other than that, it works perfectly fine. I haven't had any issues with layer lines or knocking anything off of the build plate after that fact. So just a side piece of note there. Definitely slow down your first layers. This, like I said, is a Delta style printer. We have our filament runout sensor. We have a volcano style hot end, so you can have very fast, high flowing filament going through there. And it also boasts because of the volcano nozzle, you also get that 300 degrees Celsius printing ability on the nozzle. So you can print pretty much anything you can throw at it. However, you will need an enclosure if you go a little bit beyond basically PETG. I don't really suggest printing anything beyond that without an enclosure. First, for your safety, and just for the fact that even if you think it can print anything after PETG perfectly fine, technically you are right. But it's the outside that looks good, but the inside, the bonding process is not that great. So, but we'll get into that whole analytic type thing on a different note. But let's talk a little bit more about the printer. This is a clipper-based printer, which is a first for me. And I will tell you that I am way in over my head. As you guys know and see, I am mostly into resin printing now, but we do have the occasional FDM printer that we have to review here. And this is no exception. So I do try and get as much as I can out of the machine when I have it, and that's exactly what we've been doing. Now, I haven't been able to push it to its tallest, I guess, build volume, you can call it. But maybe we'll do some very, very large prints at some point. I do have like an arm statue that I'm working on right now with a designer for the Nintendo the Nintendo glove. You know, you guys all know the glove. So I'm going to have that as a display piece, so I need a very large printer to print that in. Instead of printing it in parts, I want to do it in one shot, one go, and I think this printer would do it justice. So build volume wise, this is a very, very large printer. Now, it says that it is a 300 round by 410. Now, I will say that that is insanely large for this type of printer. This is probably the largest Delta that I know of, sub, a $1,200 range. So this is Flsun's newest prodigy, I guess you can call it. And it's definitely a step above the Super Racer. Now, with that being said, is it better than the Super Racer? At first, I didn't think it really was. But after I started printing with it and understanding the whole clipper aspect of it, it kind of got a little bit better, and I got a little bit more familiar with it. So if you're someone like me that's coming from a Marlin-based printer, you're probably not going to be too excited about this printer because there are quite a few different technological changes on the firmware. I mean, it is very basic and straightforward, but there's a lot of stuff that you can change with this machine. Not only that, can you change the stuff on the machine on the pad, you can also do it remotely, so you can actually have access to your printer while you're outside of the office, the print farm, wherever you're at, anywhere in the world that you have access to your printers. You could basically set a print and go. It's a fantastic feature to have, and it's been great. Now, I do want to touch on some of the issues that I did experience when we first unboxed the printer and had it for the first month or so, because we have had it for quite some time. And my apologies for not getting any recent reviews out there. It's just, work's been hectic, so my apologies. I am working on it. So, anyway, the major issues that I had consistently all the time was, at the time when I first started it, I did not have it hooked up to the web. Well, I did, but I didn't have it hooked up to where I can view it off of the web. I didn't print from the web. That was a little bit later on down the road, so I utilized the USB stick. Now, the USB stick works perfectly fine. I've used it on other different printers. I've even swapped USB sticks. But it seems to be that there was an issue where if you put the USB stick in, it would recognize the USB stick, you would go to click on it, and then it would kick you right out, and you couldn't get back in it again. No matter how many times you would unplug that USB and plug it back in, it just kept on erroring out, and I couldn't understand it for the life of me. It's, I guess, just a glitch with the Flsun speeder pad that's connected to this printer, because it does have a 7-inch LCD touch panel right here that you utilize for all of your workings. And again, it is a very basic touch UI that they utilize. But it's not that hard to navigate it. But just to have that type of glitch is a little bit of an annoying thing, because you literally have to turn off the printer and turn it back on. Another thing, and actually I'm still kind of experiencing it intermittently now, is the fact that when you do the mesh leveling for the bed, and it's specifically just the mesh leveling. When you go and do that into the software, it basically will do all the mesh, and then it'll kick me right out and say, nope, you're good. You don't have to do anything, and it'll tell me I need to restart the firmware. Which is strange, because once you restart the firmware, it zeroes that all out, and it's absolutely useless. So, not the end of the world, because the bed is pretty much leveled. Like, this is not on a bed slinger or anything like that. This is on a very solid surface. It's a chunky surface, probably about that big. So, it's not really going to have really major issues with warping. Yeah, you might experience some, but it's very little compared to a bed slinger. So, other than that, it's been a fantastic printer. Like I said, it prints insanely fast, and even if I tune it down to print slower, it is still faster than any stock FDM bed slinger that I've had in my hands that runs Marlin firmware. So, it is crazy fast. And pretty much anything that I throw at this thing, it just churns it out, no problem. As you can see here, this print that I'm going to show you guys in a little bit here, this is actually some new filament that was just brought out, and it's glow-in-the-dark filament by Yusu. So it's they're like clear, I think this is clear blue if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It might be clear green. I forgot. But this is red that glows in the dark, and then it's purple glow-in-the-dark. I was hoping that I had enough to where I can switch it to the blue that they had too, so we can have all different transitional colors, but oh well. So this is quite a large print. This was a 250 gram, and almost a 250 gram. I'd say it's probably 200 grams. So it's quite a beefy print there. But I purposely did that and upped the infill so I can utilize those specific filament brands, so I can get a review video out on that as well and show you guys all out. Now I'm gonna try and set that up and make it glow in the dark, because I do have a new fancy UV flashlight here, so that way I can charge it. Because if you have a UV flashlight or a wash and cure station like I have, you just throw it in there for like 5 minutes and charge it up, and it'll be just as good as if you left it out in the sun. But before we get to that, I just want to show you guys off some of the prints that I have done on this printer that have turned out pretty dang good as far as I can tell. So I have my own spool of filament. It is the Kumamods Black and Red. Some of you guys may or may not have seen it. We do some limited runs of it. It's about 50 at a time. And I had some issues because it is a cardboard spool. And some people do utilize some printers that basically don't like cardboard spools. So there was a filament adapter created by a fellow TikToker of mine, Gemini X Creations, and I'll tag him down below, so if you guys want to go and follow his content. He does have a bunch of spool adapters for those type of cardboard spools, including Protopasta adapter in case you guys need it. But this one's specifically for my spool, and it does have my logo on it. Now, one side has 4 of my logos, and the other one has 3 sides of my logo. But they basically fit together, and they form one entire part to create your new spool holder that is all plastic. So these printed off pretty well. They took about, I want to say, 2.5 hours on that. And this is at 100% infill because I wanted them to be chunky. I wanted them to be good. And they came out pretty good. And this filament is not that great. It was very watered down. It had issues on all my other printers. So I threw it on the Flsun and it just spit it right out. Like I said, everything that I've thrown at this in terms of filament wise, it just prints beautifully without any hesitation. So there's the first print that we did. Next one we did on that same exact filament. It's kind of like a clear orange. And this is by IWE Color, but we printed a little tiny unicorn. And as you can see, it came out pretty good. I'm not complaining about it for the filament that it is. Again, this is not the greatest of filaments. It was just kind of given to me as a gift, and it was just okay. The next one I printed for my daughter because, as you guys may or may not know, she is very gullible, and she loves being on the streams with me at times. She loves doing TikToks with me, and she is now deemed herself as the resin printing princess, and it's kind of went a little bit viral on that. So for our first print on the actual printer, the Flsun, we printed off a crown for her. Now, unfortunately, one of the crown things broke. I'll have to glue it back together, but that's the downfall of having a little child that, you know, has very, very brittle prints around her. And I'll be honest, this thing was kind of made in Tinkercad, so it's not the greatest of prints. But again, it's a fantastic crown. It came out perfectly fine. And this was printed in the Polymaker Polyterra, I think it was. So we did have some issues there with the stringing, and that's just because I printed this with no supports, because I wanted to kind of test the bridging effect that this printer can have, and it did not disappoint. So just want to do this a little bit closer up so you guys can see. This is no supports, and it bridged that gap quite a lot. So that's a pretty thick gap. That's probably 2-3 millimeters at the speed that this thing runs. Like, now you got to understand, it's not like we're bridging from here to here, you know, like from here to here. It's not like that. No. It's bridging on the outside and building from the bottom up. So it's even harder to do that, in my opinion, than it is to try and bridge something a couple of times. So I'm thoroughly impressed. Without tweaking anything right out of the box, it's pretty dang good. I am quite impressed with it. So without further ado, let's get to our little mask. So the other great thing about this printer is it does come with a flex plate. Now, me personally, I like the textured build plates, and that's what this one comes with. So that's a win in my book. I know a lot of people don't like the texturized build plate. Maybe it's just the 80s kid in me that sees it as like the textured dashboards in cars. I don't know, but let's get this off the build plate and see how it goes. Came off in one. Whew, that is chunky. I hope I can remove these supports. If not, we're just gonna have to cut this a little bit short. But how about some ASMR? We'll get it close to the microphone here. Boom, done. And yes, I do use some adhesion promotion on that just to be on the safe side, because this machine isn't so insanely fast that I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any failures with this, and that way we can print this as it should. So again, I'm going to try and remove these supports as quickly as possible. These are not tuned supports. These are completely stock out of Lychee. So without me using any type of tools or anything, that's usually how my supports are. But again, I usually utilize Simplified 3D, and these supports are removing pretty easily so far, as well as the raft on here. I know this is kind of unconventional for a review video, but hey, might as well take you guys along in the journey of support removal and seeing how easy it can be. So if you guys are looking for easy support removal and you need a good slicer, Lychee slicer is pretty good, in my opinion. So we'll pull this all off. And I realized I just didn't take a picture of that, but of how it looks, I should say. We'll try and pull most of this off. Ugh. So the raft is a little hard to get off, but the supports are coming off like butter. Now we still do have to do a little bit of cleanup here and there, but for the most part, it's good to go. And you guys may know what this mask is for. And I will say, even though we have quite a bit of stringing, because this is glow-in-the-dark filament, this is a lot harder to print on most printers because it just kills nozzles. I'd say that's pretty dang good for transition with just having a filament runout sensor and me literally just standing there like plugging the filament in to get the next one going. I am thoroughly impressed with that result on this print and that printer. I can't really say too much. I mean, it literally speaks for itself. But perfect fit. I do enjoy it. So, other than that, that's really all I got to say about it. It hasn't been too bad of a ride. A little bit rocky, obviously. But like I said, once we started printing with it, it has been a fantastic printer so far. If you guys are interested in this printer, I will have links down below in the description. I will have my Amazon affiliate link. I think that's the best place to purchase this because for some reason, which is the strangest thing I've ever seen, it is $799 for this currently as we're making this review on Amazon. Or you can go to Flsun's website and it is $849, which is $50 more than Amazon, which just, that doesn't make any sense to me, but hey, you know, it is what it is. So, but yeah, anything that you guys think that you can throw at this, you pretty much can. And I'm sure there's somebody out there in the works, or even you, the user, can make an enclosure for this. The great thing about this is these are all V-slot setups, and it's very simple to make an enclosure for these with plexiglass and 3D printed parts, or, you know, frame parts if you really want to build it and make it really strong and durable. It is very simple to make an enclosure for these style printers, which I absolutely love. It doesn't take any, you know, super science work like fitment or anything. Like the extrusion rails are right here on each side. You just line them up, put them in there, and, you know, print some guides, and you're good to go. And you can print ABS on this thing. You can print polycarbonate. Because it's got a 300 millimeter nozzle, you can literally print anything you want to. And if you were to put a hardened steel nozzle on this thing, the sky's the limit. And then on top of it, even if you wanted to take it to the next level, put a larger nozzle on it. It's got a volcano style hot end, so that you can flow that filament through and it will just keep going and going, because we do have dual, I think they're 4015s? Maybe they're 5015s. So they're dual 5015s, it looks like. Those are a little bit bigger. So that's something you don't usually see on most printers, is dual 1515s for the fans. These are the part cooling fans. So if you wanted to tune in that bridging effect, easily done with this printer, because you have the airflow to compensate for the issue of sagging and everything like that. So, but yeah, other than that, it's been, like I said, kind of a rocky roller coaster, but it's getting better and better. So I will say, if you guys do happen to get this printer, it is a pretty good buy for what it is. Now, I know there's a lot of other printers in its price range that might appeal to you a little bit more, but I will tell you, there is nothing more satisfying than watching a Delta style printer print away. It is the most mesmerizing thing that I can think possible. And if you're someone who likes to live stream your prints, this is probably the coolest printer that you can do for live streaming, in my opinion, just because of the way that it just rocks back and forth and goes like this. Like, it is the coolest printer that you can possibly see. And I'll just keep saying that. The coolest printer that you can possibly have for printing. Mesmerizing. So, other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. If you can, go ahead and like and follow and share this out to your friends, so they might be interested in the Flsun V400. And yeah, until next time, guys, happy printing.